After 1857, the British Parliament understood the importance of reinforcing its control in India. Hence, in 1858, the Government of India Act was passed. As per the Act, India came under the direct rule of the British, and as a promise, the British Empire agreed to remain strictly impartial and not interfere in social and religious matters of India. The Act also helped in establishing an administrative structure in India. The Viceroy was given the highest authority and was advised by an executive council. The first Viceroy of British India was Lord Canning. In 1859, a new revolution started to take shape in the form of peasant revolts in the eastern parts of the country. The peasants of Bengal had begun protesting against the forced plantation of the indigo crop. These riots forced the British government to appoint an indigo commission to investigate the issue. Many planters from the lower Bengal region had to shift to Bihar too. Similarly, the whole of India was suffering from the British rule. In the urban areas, the middle class had started developing a sense of patriotism through the influence of Western education, the Indian Renaissance, and the growing print culture. They sought education and realized that the imperial rule was severely exploiting India's economy. This and the lack of representation in the government prompted them to participate in the regional movements across the country actively. In 1861, Lord Canning enacted the Indian Councils Act, which allowed the Indians into the Executive Council. Even though Indians were nominated to the council, they had no statutory provisions to bring change as they were non-official members. Further, the British government noticed the rise in nationalism and enforced repressive measures like the Vernacular Press Act of 1878 to curb the spread of nationalist thoughts in the vernacular newspapers. While many protested against such laws, slowly the nationalists learned that building a united front could pressure the British government. And against this backdrop, many nationalists tried forming political associations such as the Indian League, the East India Association, etc. But none of them were able to launch a united front against the British exploitation of India. One of the most prominent associations was the Indian National Congress. It was established by A.O. Hume, a retired English civil servant, along with other Indian nationalists in 1885 at Bombay. And this session was presided by W.C. Banerjee. The association there onwards met every year in December in different parts of the country to discuss the political and administrative plan for the upcoming year. The establishment of Congress is considered a crucial point in Indian history as it led the foundation of the Indian national movement. From 1885 to 1905, the majority of the Congress followed the moderate approach. The Congress leaders during this period believed in constitutional agitation within the confines of the law. Their two-pronged approach aimed at first creating a strong awareness and public opinion among Indians by awakening their consciousness and united them. Second, it also aimed to persuade the British public and the government to introduce reforms in India. One of the demands of the INC was the reformation of the Legislative Council and elections. And as a result, the Indian Councils Act of 1892 took shape. It increased the number of additional members in the imperial and provincial legislative councils, but maintained an official majority in them. So it didn't seem satisfactory to Congress. Meanwhile, the British decided to take some administrative steps to curb the spread of nationalism in its crown jewel, that was Bengal. In 1905, Viceroy Lord Curzon publicly shared his plan to partition Bengal. And on 16th October 1905, Lord Curzon executed the partition of Bengal despite the opposition by Indian nationalists. As per the British government, this was a step for administrative convenience. But the Indian nationalists, they recognized this was divide and rule policy of the British, as the partition divided Bengal into Hindu-majority Western Bengal and Muslim-majority Eastern Bengal. Leaders like Surendranath Banerjee and Anand Mohan Bose had played an important role in protesting against the partition. From 1905, a new set of leaders had a dominant influence in Congress. These leaders are referred to as assertive nationalists or extremists who led the nationalist movement between 1905 and 1918. Congress even launched the Swadeshi and boycott movements which aimed to make India self-reliant by promoting Swadeshi goods and boycotting British manufactured goods. Congress sought a radical change in its approach at this point. Under the presidency of Dadabhai Naoroji, Congress believed that they had to take direct political action and challenge the British authority to achieve Swaraj. Amidst this backdrop, there also emerged another group of nationalists who opposed the British, the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries believed in the use of violence to overthrow the British rule. Bengal, Maharashtra, Punjab, and parts of South India became the centers of such activities. Meanwhile, most of the upper and middle class Muslims of East Bengal supported partition as it enabled them to gain majority representation. To this end, in 1906, they formed the All India Muslim League under initial leadership of Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka, along with Nawabs Mohsinul Mulk and Waqarul Mulk, and demanded separate electorates. By 1907, the moderate and the assertive nationalists argued about the direction of the nationalist movement and methods to be undertaken against the British. And this resulted in the split of Congress party in the Surat session. The British responded to the Swadeshi movements and the split with lathi charges and detention, due to which the Swadeshi movement declined by 1908. Further, in 1909, Lord Minto, the Viceroy, and Secretary of State John Morley worked out a plan to gain support of the moderates and the Muslims. This plan is widely known as the Morley-Minto reforms. Through these proposed reforms, Indians were allowed to participate in the Legislative Council elections on limited franchise, while also providing a separate electorate for the Muslims. It also planned to expand the Legislative Council to include more elected Indians. Finally, in 1911, the partition of Bengal was annulled on account of revolutionary activities, and the capital of British India was moved from Calcutta to Delhi. During World War I, revolutionary activities broke out yet again in favor of Indian independence. The Ghadar Party, established in 1913 in Oregon, USA, actively participated in armed revolutionary activities from 1914 to 1917 in Punjab. Back in India, nationalists such as Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Annie Besant launched the Home Rule League of their own to demand self-government within the British Commonwealth and educate everyone on policies through newspapers, public meetings, and other such means. But gradually, this faded in 1919 due to lack of proper organization, communal riots, the arrest of Annie Besant, and many other reasons. After fizzling out of the Home Rule League, a new phase emerged in the nationalist movement, the Gandhian phase. Gandhiji returned to India from South Africa on 9th January 1915. His idea of satyagraha was a novel method of mass agitation that used the power of truth and non-violence to fight injustice. He used satyagraha in several movements such as Champaran Satyagraha in 1917, Ahmedabad Mill Strike and Kheda Satyagraha in 1918. The era from 1919 to 1939 is known as the era of mass nationalism. The British even enacted the Government of India Act in 1919. It is also known as the Montagu-Chelmsford Reforms. This act sought to increase the number of Indians in the Legislative Council and admitted Indians to the Council of the Secretary of the State of India. It also established a diarchy system in the provincial governments. But then, the act had many drawbacks. Moreover, before the act was implemented, the British government had passed the Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act, popularly known as the Rowlatt Act. Against this backdrop, Mahatma Gandhi planned to launch a nationwide satyagraha, also known as Rowlatt Satyagraha, on 6th April 1919. But soon, the movement turned violent in many parts of the country, and in Punjab, it resulted in the Jallianwala Bagh incident, which forced Mahatma Gandhi to call off the movement. Mahatma Gandhi looked for a widespread, non-violent movement that would involve both Hindus and Muslims as a united front. In 1919, a Khilafat committee was formed to force the British government to change its attitude towards Turkey. Mahatma Gandhi joined hands with the leaders of the Khilafat committee, Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali, to launch the Khilafat non-cooperation movement in 1920. The INC also endorsed the movement at its Nagpur session. The movement unraveled in different stages. First, people gave up their titles, left schools and colleges, boycotted courts, legislative councils, and gave up British goods. Then, if the British used repression, the movement would lead to civil disobedience. While the movement received good participation from peasants, students, and women, the participation among the middle class reduced over time. Unfortunately, Mahatma Gandhi was forced to call off the movement in 1922 in the wake of incident in Chauri Chaura, present-day Uttar Pradesh, and the British arrested him. After his imprisonment, the national movement became passive. Motilal Nehru and Chittaranjan Das wanted to end the boycott of legislative councils and use it as a platform for political struggle and to arouse popular enthusiasm. Difference in opinion over the question of council entry had led to the formation of Swaraj Party, or specifically the Congress Khilafat Swaraj Party, on 1st January 1923. And after a few years, this party eventually merged with the Congress in 1930. Meanwhile, socialist ideas had begun to take a stronghold in the subcontinent in the late 1920s. Many young people who participated in the non-cooperation movement were unhappy with the way it ended abruptly. The Swarajist program didn't appeal to them either. While socialism was embraced by Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose in the Congress, there emerged two powerful parties of the left: the Communist Party of India in December 1925 and the Congress Socialist Party in October 1934 under the leadership of Jayaprakash Narayan, Acharya Narendra Dev and Meenu Masani. Another significant event in 1920s was the Bardoli Satyagraha led by Sardar Patel. Hit by floods and famines in 1925, the Bardoli farmers were adversely affected. However, the tax rates here were increased by the Bombay Presidency. The farmers couldn't afford to pay higher taxes. The authorities weren't budging despite the farmers' pleas. Finally, the farmers invited Vallabhbhai Patel to launch a protest movement. The Satyagraha resulted in the government setting up a commission to look into the matter, and Vallabhbhai Patel emerged as a national leader. Another significant event during this decade was the arrival of the Simon Commission. In 1928, the British appointed an all-English member commission under the chairmanship of Sir John Simon to evaluate constitutional reforms needed in the future. It was a part of the provision in the Government of India Act of 1919 that suggested that the British would appoint a commission that would study the progress of the governance scheme and suggest a new course of action. The Simon Commission was greeted with popular protests as there were no Indian members in the committee. Nonetheless, the Simon Commission submitted a report in 1930 suggesting changes like the abolishment of the diarchy system and the establishment of a representative government in the provinces which should be given autonomy. But its recommendations were held back, and the report was held back for matters of higher priority. In the same year, Indians were challenged by Lord Birkenhead to draft a constitution that was accepted by everyone. The nationalists called for an all-party conference and appointed Motilal Nehru as the chairperson of the drafting committee. The report, submitted popularly known as the Nehru Report, had demands like dominion status for India that was accepted by Congress but disapproved by the younger members such as Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose. They wanted to demand for Poon Swaraj, while the Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha and Sikh communalists disapproved this particular report on different grounds. But Viceroy Lord Irwin disregarded their demands. Following this, Jawaharlal Nehru was elected as the president of the 1929 Lahore Congress session. It was in this session that the Congress demanded Poon Swaraj for the first time and declared 26 January 1930 as the Independence Day. And on 31st December 1929 at midnight on the banks of River Ravi, Jawaharlal Nehru unveiled a new tricolor flag of freedom amidst slogans of Inqilab Zindabad. To further reinforce the resolution of the Lahore Congress, Mahatma Gandhi presented 11 demands to Lord Irwin, which also included the abolishment of the salt tax. On 12th March 1930, Mahatma Gandhi and 78 others embarked on a journey from Sabarmati Ashram in Dandi to break the salt law. And thus, the civil disobedience movement was launched. This movement spread across the subcontinent and had a similar enthusiasm as the British boycott movement. Meanwhile, the first roundtable conference was held in London between the British and the Indians based on the recommendations of the Simon Commission and of Jinnah to Lord Irwin. This was the first conference arranged between the British and the Indians as equals. However, amidst the ongoing demand for Poon Swaraj and the civil disobedience movement, Congress decided to boycott the first roundtable conference. The movement came to an end with Mahatma Gandhi and Lord Irwin entering into an agreement with the Gandhi-Irwin Pact on 5th March 1931. On 29th March 1931, the Congress met at Karachi. It was only 6 days back that Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru had been executed. They were charged for the revolutionary activities against the British, including the murder of ASP Saunders. Bhagat Singh's role in anti-imperialist revolutionary activities, including the throwing of a bomb in the Central Assembly on 8th April 1929 to oppose Trade Disputes Bill, had garnered him support from the youth across India. So, when the revolutionaries were executed, there was anger among people, especially the younger left-wing section, as to why Gandhiji had not been able to get his execution cancelled under the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. The Karachi session was where Gandhiji endorsed the pact and prevailed upon the Congress members to approve the agreement, as he was convinced that Lord Irwin and the British were sincere in their efforts to negotiate with the Indian leaders. Adhering to the pact, Mahatma Gandhi attended the second roundtable conference in London, but returned disappointed as the negotiations did not go well. So when Gandhiji returned, he resumed the civil disobedience movement. Gandhiji and other Congress leaders were arrested, and the Congress was declared illegal by the new Viceroy, Wellington. One of the limitations of the civil disobedience movement was the lack of the Dalit participation. To uplift the Dalits from oppression, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar established the Depressed Classes Association in 1930. He clashed with Mahatma Gandhi during the second roundtable conference held at London in September 1931 to allocate separate electorate for the Dalit population. B.R. Ambedkar's dreams saw the light of the day when the then Prime Minister MacDonald in 1932 decided to grant communal award to the minorities and the depressed classes, by which separate electorates were given to them in the election of members of the provincial legislative assemblies. Gandhiji, who was against this idea, undertook a fast while in jail in Pune to revolve this decision. Later, both arrived at a consensus with the Pune Pact of 1932, in which the Dalits were given more reserved seats in central and the provincial legislatures. The third roundtable conference took place in London in November and December of 1932. With many leaders of Congress behind bars, the third roundtable conference was conducted without the participation of the Congress. The recommendations of this conference became the basis for the Government of India Act 1935. The Government of India Act 1935 ensured autonomy to the provinces and abolished the diarchy system in the provinces, and also provided for a bicameral legislature at the center. Instead, Congress demanded convening a constituent assembly to draft a constitution for an independent India based on universal adult franchise, and rejected this particular proposal. Against this backdrop, in 1937 provincial elections, Congress claimed a majority in all provinces except Bengal, Assam, Punjab, Sindh, and the Northwest Frontier Province, and emerged as the single largest party in Bengal, Assam, and Northwest Frontier Province. Congress was able to bring some changes and reforms within the system, but their command was short-lived. On the outbreak of the Second World War, the British had declared India's support without consulting Congress. However, the Congress wanted to use this opportunity to secure complete independence. They had several discussions with the Viceroy Lord Linlithgow, but nothing proved fruitful. This resulted in members of the Congress resigning from the ministries. However, in January 1940, the then Viceroy stated the Dominion status of the Westminster variety after the war is the goal of the British policy in India. Congress did not want to accept anything less than the complete independence for the country, and declared that they wouldn't support the war efforts of the British in the Ramgarh session of the Congress in 1940. On the other hand, at Lahore, the Muslim League also passed a resolution to demand a separate state and sovereignty for the Muslim majority areas in the northwest and the east parts of our country. By 1940, the war took a brutal turn for the British. Hitler had Belgium, Holland, and France struggling, putting Britain in a difficult position. By August 1940, Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru decided not to take advantage of the British misfortunes during wartime. Congress proposed to compromise by forming an interim government during the war period, but the government presented a counter-offer. This proposition is widely known as the August Offer. The British proposed Dominion status for India, an expansion of the Viceroy's Executive Council to have more Indians. It also proposed setting up a constituent assembly after the war where mainly Indians would decide the constitution. But the Congress declined the offer because they wanted complete independence from the British. However, the Muslim League accepted certain allocations made in the offer, but was firm on forming a separate state. The British, however, did not budge and refused any form of constitutional advance unless the Congress came to an agreement with the Muslim communalists. They did everything in their capacity to prevent the Congress from starting a mass movement again. Ordinances were passed to the effect of curbing freedom of the speech. The Congress asked Gandhiji to take command. So Gandhiji initiated a limited satyagraha called individual satyagraha to be taken up by select leaders from various localities against the British. By 1942, the war was wearing on the British, and with the threat of the Japanese attack on India, British unwearingly sought to secure India's support. As a result, in March 1942, the British sent a mission headed by Sir Stafford Cripps with constitutional proposals to seek India's support in the war. The proposal received criticism and objection from both Congress and the Muslim League. The Congress objected to the dominion status of India as they wanted complete independence, while the Muslim League wanted a separate state and rejected single united India. Thus, the Cripps mission had failed. But the possibility of a Japanese invasion grew by the day, and the British failed to manage it. The prices of the commodities rose to the peak. Considering the situation, the Congress decided to take action and passed a resolution demanding an end to the British rule in India. And thus, they launched the Quit India movement in August 1942. Mahatma Gandhi also accompanied this with the slogan, "Do or die." In response, the British responded with brutal repression. Many nationalists were arrested and some went into hiding. By 1943, the Indian freedom movement had additional support by the Indian National Army led by Subhash Chandra Bose with the assistance of the Japanese army. The Azad Hind Fauj, or INA, planned the military campaigns to liberate India from the hands of the British. The INA also marched with the Japanese army in the hopes to defeat the British and establish a provincial government in India. But as the Japanese lost the war, INA was also defeated. By 1945, Subhash Chandra Bose was reported to have succumbed to a plane crash. After the Second World War ended in 1945, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill was keen to provide a solution for the Indian Constitution and retain India in the British Commonwealth. The British appointed Lord Wavell to draft a plan for the same. The Wavell plan proposed that with the exception of the Governor-General and the Commander-in-Chief, all other members of the Executive Council would be Indians with equally represented Hindus and Muslims, and also the inclusion of the Sikhs and the depressed classes. This plan was discussed during the conference at Shimla. The League insisted that only League members could be the Muslim representatives in the council and opposed to the Congress nominating Muslim members. The Congress discredited the plan, saying it made them look like an elite Hindu party. Since the Congress and the League could not settle their differences, the conference was a failure. The next year, in 1946, the British faced a new challenge in the form of Royal Indian Navy mutiny in February. What began as an opposition to the poor living and working conditions by the non-commissioned officers and sailors or ratings against the British soon turned into a mutiny against the British rule in India. Naval soldiers gathered in Bombay and they were joined by Royal Indian Air Force men as well. Although the mutiny succeeded in gaining mass support, it did not receive much support from the Indian leaders. The mutiny finally came to an end on 23rd February 1946 with the intervention of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. After Clement Attlee became the Prime Minister of Britain in 1945, he sent a cabinet mission which included Patrick Lawrence, Stafford Cripps, and A.V. Alexander to negotiate a peaceful transfer of power to India. The mission arrived in India in March 1946 and suggested a plan by May. As per the plan, India would be granted freedom without any partition, and the provinces would be divided into 3 groups, forming Muslim majority and non-Muslim majority provinces. A constituent assembly was also to be formed to draft India's constitution, the drafting committee of which would be later chaired by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. While Congress had their apprehensions, they accepted the Viceroy's invitation to form the new interim government. But Jinnah and the Muslim League were not satisfied, as it rejected the demand for a full-fledged Pakistan. They wanted to accentuate their demand for a separate Pakistan state and protested by calling 16th August 1946 as Direct Action Day. Many large-scale communal riots broke out at various places in India, causing equally large fatalities. With the rise of communalism in India, partition seemed evident at this point. On 28th February 1947, Clement Attlee, the Prime Minister of Britain, declared that they would relinquish their power in India by 30th June 1948. He named Lord Mountbatten as the Viceroy of India, succeeding Lord Wavell. Lord Mountbatten worked around the partition plan, or the 3rd June plan, which both Congress and the Muslim League accepted. Finally, on 18th July 1947, the Indian Independence Act received the royal assent. And on 15th August 1947, India was an independent country.